If you've been following me on YouTube, you know I just passed a Top Step account. And with that takes a lot of discipline and awareness to make sure you're not making poor decisions in your trading. So today I'm just going to explain to you guys how I have managed to stay disciplined for this evaluation, and I'll explain a little bit about what happens when I'm not disciplined as well, so you guys can get both sides of that. All right, so the first thing that I'll mention, I've mentioned many times in my videos already, and chances are if you follow me, you've probably heard me say this in other videos a few times. But the biggest thing you can do to stay disciplined is, first of all, you have to track all your data very well. But when you do that, you will have all of your losses documented. And then if you track your data well enough, you will know exactly why you lost on any given trade. So for example, I will use tags in TradeZella. On forced trades, I'll tag them up as forced or whatever the issue may be. That way I have them sorted by the actual mistake rather than just looking at a negative P&L from the trade. So when you do that, you can begin to categorize all of your mistakes that you make, and you will be able to add up all the amount of money that you would have saved had you not made that mistake over and over again. And I guarantee you, when you do this, it will make your eyes will open to what your main problems are. You'll be so sick to see how much money you could have avoided losing had you would have just stayed disciplined and not made the error that you made on that trade. Obviously, when we talk about disciplined trading, losses come with trading. You can't avoid every single loss for the rest of your life, but there are definitely good losses and bad losses. So I'll just use a few of my biggest mistakes to explain to you guys how I kind of changed my habits. But so I had it came down to three mistakes. My biggest one by far was I would take a trade and I would have a thesis. But let's say I got stopped out of my first entry, I would literally re-enter within the same minute or less of stopping out. So I'm telling you, I would stop out and then literally enter in the next 30 seconds. There are days where I do that 3 times in a row or 2 times in a row. And whenever I added up the amount of money I lost by doing that, it was just like, all right, I'm never going to re-enter after getting stopped out within 3 minutes. So I'm not saying that every time you stop out that it's completely invalid to re-enter. That's not what I'm saying. The behavior I had to change to fix this mistake was I had to make sure that my stop loss was always at a point where the trade thesis was completely invalid. So that way I knew if I stopped out that my thesis is invalid and it's not going to play out. So that's one thing that helped me with that mistake. Another thing was I would literally watch a timer. So on most trading platforms, the time will be, you'll have a timer somewhere and it will show you the time to the second. That way I know exactly when I enter, and if I stop out, I know exactly when I stop out. And and nowadays I will fully not even re-enter within 3 minutes. I kind of narrowed the data down to see that most of the time when I stop out and keep stopping out in a row, it's whenever I enter within 2 minutes. So now if I stop out of a trade, one, my stop loss is in a place where it is completely invalid, and I just do not enter any trades within 3 minutes after stopping out of a trade. So that has pretty much eliminated completely that mistake. And if I pulled my TradeZella up, you would see that. So I've been documenting my journey since May, but you would see that in May and June, you could probably count at least half of my complete losses from that one mistake. So yeah, I don't have that habit anymore, and I've eliminated that. And then the next mistake that's cost me most of my losses was taking trades that were outside of my plan or strategy. So sometimes it sounds really stupid, but I trade off order flow, so I should be sticking to what I know based on the order flow. There have been days in the past, not recently, where I would take trades that were pretty much unrelated to order flow. I might have based a thesis off fair value gaps, stuff that I don't trade relative, stuff that's not relative to my strategy. And not even just that, but taking trades as stupid as like we're gonna sweep VWAP and then continue up or down, or just like stupid whims that you have in your head. Like you might have a good day or you might have a good few days, and then you think that you know, and then you think you know exactly what's gonna happen next. How do I explain it? Basically, it really just boils down to taking trades that are you're not supposed to take. And it's also kind of tied into gambling. So how I fix that habit is I strictly only take setups that are in my plan or in my strategy. So that one also kind of ties into my third biggest mistake in trading, which is gambling, completely gambling on trades, which I don't do this anymore. But if you guys followed me in July, at the end of July, basically I was one trade away or less than one win away from passing my evaluation, and I was getting rebuild on a certain like 2 days ahead or 3 days ahead. So I was in the mindset that I just needed to get a little more. Like I didn't even need a full win, right? So I was like literally gambling on entries, and every single time I do that, I shouldn't say every single time. Most of the time when I do that, I will lose. So that's exactly what happened. I was less than one trade away from passing my eval. I gambled 3 times on entries, like just because I wanted to pass it real quick. And I put myself back like 2 steps, or so then I put myself back like an extra like $2,000, right? I got it back, and then this was the day before I was getting rebuild. I was $900 away from passing the 150K, and then the same exact thing. I was like, oh, I either pass it today, so I risk, if I don't take any trades today, then I will have to pay for another month and then possibly pass the evaluation the next day after I get rebuild and have to pay the fees. So my mindset was, oh, I'll just gamble on entries and hope it passes. So those are my 3 biggest problems in trading, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to at least one of them. But whenever you add up, whenever you categorize all of your whenever you categorize all of your trades and you tag them up and you know exactly why you lost, or you know exactly your decision making that happened during a certain trade, over time you will build up all the data and you will see your main flaws in trading. And that's why I love TradeZella so much, because you can see everything right in front of you. And it's crazy to me to think that people are really trading without documenting their entries and just literally documenting everything. It just makes no sense to trade and not document your trading, because it'll allow you to see everything a lot more clear than you would without some sort of system to document things. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to that. I hope that helps somebody out there who's new to trading, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.